What the hell is up, y'all? I'm Matt Vogt, and this is Let Me Talk to You. So what we're going to do here is we're going to find businesses that are growing, changing, and evolving their area of industry in the St. Louis area and farther out. And today, guys, I got something special for you. So today, we're going to be looking at somebody who is him. I don't know what that means, but I guess we'll find out. So today I have my producer, my longtime friend, an amazing storyteller, a pretty damn good journalist in his own right, someone I've spent just an immense amount of time with, used to live with me, my good friend, Murphy Wells.
Happy to be here. Happy to be him.
So Murph, go ahead and tell the people about yourself real quick.
I guess it depends on what you want to know. I guess as far as like the 10,000 foot view, I am an entrepreneur. I run my own media kind of contracting and consulting business where I help people with photo, video, editing, social media platform management, and of course communication, because that's the real benefit that I offer. And pretty much all social media is just conveying ideas to people. It's just communication. And as you said earlier, I appreciate the journalism thing. A big part of my brand and what I've been able to build over the last couple of years is just kind of reacting to events. And I've taken time away from that, but now I'm about to be taking more time in proximity to that. But it all kind of comes from like my audacity to question things and a heavy dose in education that comes back to like journalism and English and literature and creative writing. And I've had my run-ins with the law, and I've been a bad guy, and I've gone down the path of kind of moral recovery, not substance recovery, because recovery is for quitters. And and I mean, I just try to keep a decent sense of humor around most things. And I just, again, I'm all about taking risks and kind of telling stories. So I think that's where that finds us today.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, it was a no-brainer. You know, me and you have been talking about doing this podcast for a long time. And, I finally got the idea that I really wanted. And so here you are. So let me ask you this. Very open-ended. Everything you're going to hear today is going to be up to your interpretation. There's no good answer. There's no bad answer. What we're looking to do is tell a story here. And I want to hear the ups. I want to hear the downs. I want to hear absolutely fucking everything. I want to hear, if you think it's relevant, start off at the beginning and finish it right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're going to cover everything.
Yeah. How did we get here kind of thing?
Exactly. So my very first question is, you were talking about politics. You said that. Why politics? Why now? Why'd you stop? And where are you going with it?
Sure. Well, when I was younger, like most people, I think in this area, South County, and I was born in the city,
right?
So South St. Louis, Southwestern Arsenal, right there on the hill. The hill is home to a lot of different cultures. And, my mom, at a very young age for me, I was probably about 3 years old when we moved out of the city. And that kind of like working class background. You could be a working class Republican household, or you could be a working class Democrat. I'm pretty sure most of my family just kind of saw themselves as working class Democrat. Like my Uncle Steve worked for the paper, and he was a lifelong journalist. And most of my family is working class, and we weren't special. We weren't swimming in money.
Oh yeah,
like
exactly.
Most people around here aren't. So unless you're that one house on Union, apparently you are.
Right.
And so as we got older, it was actually because you and I went to high school together all 4 years. And it was when we got into probably journalism class, is around that time, Occupy Wall Street was happening.
Right.
And part of the news cycle, I kind of felt like I related to it. I kind of felt like I related to like the Occupy Wall Street people, even though like I didn't have any idea about what it meant to be left or right. I just kind of saw like the government as like this one big thing, and I thought it should do better than it was. And I kind of bought into all the marketing around the isms and the phobias at that age, because it was kind of hard to argue with it, especially if you didn't have anyone in your life that really lived as like the antithesis. And so when we graduated high school, I started just trying to expand my horizons a little bit. I started watching Bill Maher And Bill Maher's been a fixture in political comedy for 30 years at this point.
Mhm.
You know, he calls himself a libertarian, but really he is a liberal. And the thing that was so great about him was that not only did he made things funny and somewhat easy to understand, but it kind of started to give me answers as to like why things work the way they do. And in retrospect, they weren't the best answers because for me, when I went away to college, like when I went away to Missouri State, which I was there to party and sell drugs, like I didn't really care about getting an education.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Oh, we will. The thing is that like Donald Trump had kind of come on the scene mid 2010s, so about 2015. He really stepped away from doing The Apprentice and all of his like stuff of that nature. And I just saw people get so mad, and I thought it was kind of lame at first. I'm like, dude, you're an actor, which he's not. He's a businessman. He does The Apprentice. Like he's a pop culture icon. He is an American icon.
In every freaking rap song you can imagine, everybody loves him.
Every single person loved Donald Trump until he decided to get into politics. And so
exactly.
Like, the thing was at the time though, was I was kind of a Bernie bro. Like I thought that when Bernie Sanders came on the scene, he was this very sympathetic person that I thought cared.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the facade. They like to get you with that.
Yes.
I mean,
it's great marketing.
Oh, phenomenal marketing. And that's just, they will lay whatever they can to whoever they can and hope they bite. Mm-hmm. It's fishing.
Well, and that's the whole thing of like the whole free college and the millionaires and billionaires, and you should be taxed the same as a working class person. It's like, this is all really poetic coming from a guy who's worked in government his whole life. You know, you're a democratic socialist, yet at the same time, like you're going to pander to working class people. You know what's best for them. You've never worked for a paycheck. You've been a Washington elite pretty much your whole life in the most appropriate state for it, which is Vermont. So the thing was that like kind of like drove me into politics, like because I didn't hate Donald Trump back in the day. I just kind of thought it was a corny appeal in the mid 2010s.
Well, yeah.
And you even like look at like how he's progressed and aged since then. I think this version of Donald Trump we have now is the best version.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, dude, I think it's safe to say that when he first came on the scene, everybody thought it was a circus, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone thought it was a joke. I mean, and then
some people liked that.
He actually started putting things into play and making sense about what he was saying, and then
calling people out.
Exactly. Somebody had to hold people accountable.
Yeah.
And he ended up doing that.
There's varying degrees of responses to that, but everything is a varying degree of response, which is why I got so deep into it. Was a lot of people don't remember this, especially from our generation, because they weren't really paying attention at the time. But, you know, it looked like at the presidential election level, it was going to be Donald Trump versus Bernie Sanders. But the DNC did Bernie Sanders in and effectively said, no, we're going to choose Hillary Clinton over you. They basically cheated him out of what he worked the whole election cycle for. And it sucks because he's still their lapdog and he still does whatever they want and he'll still parrot any talking points they have. But when I saw Hillary Clinton come to the foreground and she mentioned the whole basket of deplorables thing, she's just so fake. She's condescending. Everyone knows Hillary's a crook. Like even if you dislike Donald Trump, like there's nothing wrong with admitting that the Clinton Foundation, the Clintons themselves, everything about the elite political class around us was an us versus them conversation.
Absolutely. It's trash.
As George Carlin says, and as Andy, our mentor, talks about all the time, politics is a big club. You and I ain't in it. And so when they gave Bernie the boot, I remember sitting there in November of 2016 with my roommates in Springfield, Missouri. This is after I got out of the partying and the drug dealing and all that stuff. I had already gotten in trouble and I had to fix that. And so we were sitting there on election day. I'm like, nope, she's going to win because she's one of them and he is not. I was saying this in 2016. And we just sat there and watched 1 state, 2 state, 3 state, 4 state that shouldn't have gone to Trump, considering he was back in the polls like 4 to 5 points at this point. I went for Trump.
Well, do you think at that time it was more so it was a ghost? And I use ghost in the terms of people were so afraid to openly admit that they were going to vote for him that they told everybody else, oh yeah, I'm going to vote this way. But once you get down on paper, they all swung and voted for Trump. You think that's why you saw those results?
To To some degree, I'm sure that's part of it, but I think the thing that I've gathered more over the last decade or so since that almost decade or 9 years, whatever, actually 8 years technically. I think the thing that I've gathered is that the people in middle America, really kind of like the Midwest, the rural areas, the folks who often get forgot about because no one does events in those areas. No one goes out to
Right.
the country to go talk to the farmers and the people who work blue collar jobs, the people who stay away from the big cities. Those people heard the comments of Hillary Clinton. They saw what was next on the line, and we just got out of 8 years of Obama.
Absolutely.
The thing, to bring it back to your question, though, is that those same baskets of deplorables, they came out and they said, well, we don't want Hillary Clinton as president. And so she won the popular vote. She lost the electoral. She spent the next 4 years calling Donald Trump an illegitimate president.
Mm-hmm.
And really, over those 4 years and leading up till now, you've just seen the media kind of cabal along with big tech, the big government, big everything, even big pharma. And they've just kind of ran this man through the dirt. That said, he's not without criticism. There's a lot of things I don't like and trust about him. But to where you find me today is like a lot of the things that I believed when I was younger, I believe, but they're just more nuanced now. Like, I don't want to tell anyone how to live their life. I'm one of the more libertarian people that I know. And I hate the Libertarian Party too. Like,
Right.
they're a bunch of morons and fucks too. So for me, I kind of take that journalism background and the fact of like, as long as you've known me, like, dude, I've never cared what people thought of me. I've always been willing to say the unpopular thing. I've always been willing to sit and stand by myself and not care who was there. And as we got older and we started working for Andy,
Andy Frisella,
that is, when COVID went down and we were both just working class guys in his warehouse and they're shelling out more money to pay us for hourly, even though we couldn't be there full time. Everything he started to say made sense. And I mean, dude, right around 2018, I kind of like left my leftist leaning ways because I had been starting to walk around with this idea that like I was a bad person because of my skin color.
Right.
Because, we lived decent lives growing up. Things weren't always easy, but because the whataboutism of the isms and the phobias was always lingering, I kind of made my point to just be as middle of the road as I could.
Well, dude, that's what I feel like. Granted, I went to Merrimack, but I feel like there's a lot in the college system that is pushed on us as individuals, and it's not for the fucking better. I mean, and you can go online. I saw it last night. I mean, on Hulu, there's a whole documentary on the insurrection, which is bullshit. So wipe that thing off the face of the planet. You know what I mean? There's just a lot of false media going around. And I feel like the only way we can rely on real things now is to avoid big companies.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, independent voices being able to find their footing and share their message with a willing audience, not even just a captive audience, but like a willing audience. That willing audience says, I'm willing to debate you and call you out when I think you're wrong, and also purview knowledge from somewhere else. For example, that little thing I said about the deep state hating Donald Trump, I put that same thing on my story about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago at this point. And there was a response from a guy in there who I know, fair enough, he's an acquaintance. I wouldn't call him my best friend or anything. And his response was, bro, you got to stop just getting all your cues from Andy's show. And I was like, no, that sounds like Andy, because I'm in agreement with Andy on these points because I see them as the truth.
Right.
And I mean, whether or not you agree with them, I mean, they're basically accepted as fact these days, unless the only person you listen to is CNN or MSNBC. And so for me, I do good justice to live in contrary to that guy's point. I don't just get all my cues from Andy. I listen to Tim Pool. I listen to Patrick Bet-David. I consult people who I really don't like and who, I mean, I got to understand the temperature of the room from their side. And you may not know who these people are, but like Hassan Piker, I always want to see what's going on with Harry Sisson, because if there's one person I don't trust, it's that little yappy. I'm going to leave the next term out of it. And there is a lot of bull out there. There's a lot of bullshit out there. And so I'm not claiming to know everything, but I do a lot of research. I get really deep into the rabbit holes. I'm listening to political news pretty much all day, every day at this point. And I kind of made it a purpose of mine that when I did this, I wanted it to be a pro-American message, not necessarily a conservative message, because I don't see myself as a conservative. But these days, if you're not far left, you're
right.
And I I wanted there to be a win-win situation. And that's kind of why I stepped away from it for a little while, because I didn't feel like I was winning anymore.
Mhm.
I felt like I was playing a character of myself, because when you get into politics, it's savage.
Right.
People are tribal. People are mean-spirited. I mean, since we're recording this, what, the 18th?
Yep.
You know, a week ago, Saturday, Donald Trump, there was an assassination attempt on his life. And you get on like X, like the left leaning side of X, there are still people saying we almost had him. It's like,
That's fucking absurd.
that's where we are today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's sad. It's sad that people are willing to take an American life, first of all. I mean, and over a presidency. Just, it's fucking negligent. It just, dude, all we need to do, literally bare minimum, all America has to do is the best they can. Each and every one of us individually, right? And everything would be better. But we got people that want to push their agendas, their ideas, and everything on us. And the ignorant people like that say, oh, we barely missed them. They got so much misinformation shoved up their ass. They don't even know the actual reality of what's going on.
A lot of people still think the Russian collusion jargon from I don't know how many of the last few years, and a lot of people on the left accept it as reality, as the reason why Donald Trump won the election. No, Donald Trump won that election because middle America was tired of what the left was pushing. And then for the next 4 years after that, even up until this point, the deep state, the media, and the big government that's in bed together, they ran every story, they ran every smear campaign, they alluded to every single hoax, they took every little detail of this dude's life and made it a headline every single day, up until the point where our economy was artificially put into a stupor because of this black swan event, and all the cards aligned to get him out. And it's kind of sad to say he's the best president of my lifetime, because like the bar is not very high.
Well, dude, I wouldn't even, I say this very, he's not like any other president.
No.
He's legitimately a businessman.
Yep.
Which is what we need. Mm-hmm. And, was he reckless at points? Absolutely. Did he say outlandish shit? Absolutely. But also, these people that are drudging up his past, I get it. Bad things happened in his past. But there's a lot of bad shit in a lot of people's past that's not getting brought up.
Well, look at the pot calling the kettle black, I think.
Exactly.
If you're going to call somebody out for being a this and a that and an ism and a phobia and a fascist and a bigot and a racist and a sexual offender and all the different things that they hit him with, it's just like, well, look at the people talking. Oh, Hillary Clinton's background is clean. Bill Clinton's background is clean. I went to Epstein Island 26 times.
Right.
Bill Gates' background is clean. Nancy Pelosi.
Do you know Bill Gates owns the most real estate land in the world?
Absolutely.
That's a fucking problem.
You want to talk about a guy who's buying up farmland right now, and you want to talk about a guy who wanted to get us all eat fake meat. And it's just like, what Bill Gates does with farmland, he's basically saying like, hey, if you have any hope of getting out of these big urban environments where obviously the politics are going to be one way, like, good luck with that, because I'm going to buy as much of it as I can, and it's all going to be mine, and you can't use it for anything. You see what BlackRock does with private equity, and they buy single family homes, and it's like, well, we're going to be a nation of renters before too long. I have a house, and the economy's not great right now, and I'm like, well, what can I do? And it's like, I could sit there and get rid of it, but like if I get rid of it right now, I might make like 10 or 20 grand, but it's like, why not just keep it?
Yeah, exactly. What are you going to do with 10, 20 grand? Not much. Keep it, utilize it properly.
Pay bills for a year.
Right, exactly. So before we get off on a political tangent, I think, politics, that's going to be a big emphasis on what you're doing coming up.
Yes.
What else are you doing?
Well, I mean, as far as my business goes, politics is not a business for me. Politics is branding.
But it's branding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not because I get a big kick out of talking about these subjects, because quite honestly, they make me sick inside.
Right.
Seeing the kind of responses I get to the responses I'm giving, it's just like, this is 6 degrees of like, holy shit, everyone is fucked right now. But as far as like what I'm doing outside of that, I mean, running my business is not just about building my brand, but it's building other people's brands. I mean, as far as like this podcast right now being an example of that, like, I mean, dude, I produce podcasts obviously for Zach and Pat. I've produced for Sam Vandenbrink. I've been a part of some teams up at Phorm that were heavily media influenced and that carried a lot of weight. And I mean, dude, I was living in this house, in this room, no less, when I bought my first few cameras, just because I had seen that, you know, just shooting on your phone wasn't the only option anymore for Instagram. If you were using a high quality camera to get even just gym footage, like any semi in good shape gym bro could just stand there in the mirror with his camera vertically like this and just flex, and you'd get like 10,000 likes or 50,000 shares. And I was just like, well, fuck, dude.
Is that easy?
I mean, that's what it was of 2 years ago.
Fuck.
But I mean, all the same, I wanted to help other people with that.
Right.
You know, I was sales coaching at Phorm at the time, and I shout out to that place because without it, I wouldn't have the influences that I do now. Guys like Chaz, guys like Alex Lubers, guys like Jonah.
Yeah, let's backtrack. Let's talk about that for a second. What did Phorm when you were there? You know, guys, so when he worked at Phorm, first of all, I told him it was going to be the hardest fucking job of his life.
It was.
But
it still is.
What did that time in your life do to launch you into entrepreneurship? You know what I mean? Yeah. Into what you do. You just named a bunch of guys. Like, how did that culture affect you? You know what I mean?
I mean, I think so. Like, if anyone has ever followed any of my content, like leading up to this, there's little fixtures about the numbers 1, 3, 5, and 10. So almost all values I give will be in one of those 3 numbers or 4 numbers. And so if I were to give you 3 things that were most important, number 1, it gave me an example to follow, because you even said it on your first episode, something that I produced, obviously, that Phorm builds great entrepreneurs. But if you decide to take everything that Andy talked about from his podcasts, in the meetings, in the one-on-ones, if you're fortunate enough to have them with him, like, you've got a great playbook. You just have to take it seriously. And you're sitting there in a building that like was bought with no debt.
Yep.
As a company, they owed no investors anything. They were 100% owners. It started from very humble beginnings, which, as a guy who went to school in Springfield, Missouri, I know exactly what that store is like.
Exactly.
I worked in that store.
Vertical integration.
Absolutely. So it gave me an example that it was possible. And not even just the fact of saying I was that close to like Andy and Sal and all the great things that they do. But I mean,
no, but you were. How many companies can you say you work for or have worked for that you can walk in and not see a president, not see, you know, a CEO, not see this, that, or you see the fucking owner having conversation with the staff.
Yeah.
Base level, man.
Yeah.
I don't care how many employees they have or had. You could have a conversation with the owners, whether it be Chris or Andy,
yeah.
right?
Still can.
And they're humble. The relationships you form, the relationships you make,
I would say that's the next thing, though, that it gave me. It was like, I mean, dude, you've known me for a long time. I'm not really a team player. I never have been.
Right. Yeah, you're kind of a dick.
I am. No, absolutely. Like, I don't think anyone gives you more shit than me. Like, I talk
facts.
I talk a lot of shit, but I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I would still count myself as being like a good friend, a good quality friend. It's just like, put me with a big team of people, I don't really do well. Leave me to my own devices. Maybe the sky is not as high, but like, I feel pretty good about where I'm at.
Exactly.
And so like having that community and getting uncomfortable and being able to say like, hey, this person's counting on you, but you can also count on that person. I could even relate that back to the entrepreneurship, because you decided to leave Phorm to do your thing. And then you and I were living together. So I had visual confirmation and proof that someone close to me made it happen. Yep. And I mean, obviously you're not where you want to be, and both have years and years.
I'll never be where I want to be.
I don't think either of us will. But that being the case, though, it's that hunger.
Oh,
is
yeah.
One of those things. And I think that's the last thing that I can even say is not hunger, but hunger for a standard. Yep. Because I remember in 2021, you were gone by this point. And so we had the transformation challenges, which for those of you who aren't too familiar with Phorm, they do 4 transformation challenges a year. They're seasonal 8-week challenges where you try to achieve fitness goals. And if you do an outstanding job, well, then there's an opportunity for you to win money, free products, sponsorship, trips to HQ. And so Andy, he was like, hey, raise your hand if you want to be entered into this competition. And so like I raised my hand.
I remember that.
And so Andy went around trolling everyone in the office. He trolled like Mark. He tried both the Joe brothers, Georgia, Daryl. Like
That's hilarious.
I was like, you ain't gonna troll me?
Uh-huh.
And so like,
fuck you, bitch.
It pissed me off.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Like
take it personally.
I did take it personally. And so like, I was like, all right, I'm not doing this to compete with anyone but Andy. It's myself.
Amen.
But it's Andy. And so like, my thing was like, I sought the standard because I'd done 75 hard. This is like my third time doing it. The second time I did, I got crazy good results, but this time was gnarly. And it's because progressively, as I, was working out harder and harder, I started running, and that standard that really got invoked because like I started running for a political reason.
A little bit harder, day after day, compound interest.
It became a little bit less about like beating Andy, and it became doing something good with my body to show for sacrifice. Because getting political for a second, this is when we tried to leave Afghanistan, and it was an absolute 100% unmitigated failure, and we lost 13 service members. So for like the last 13 days of 75 hard, I ran no less than 5 miles a day. It was a number that I could make work, and I hate running. I'm terrible at it. I'm not conditioned for it at all. And so it was all leading up to a half marathon. That half marathon I ran at 4:30 in the morning around HQ in the rain, holding an American flag.
I remember that vividly.
I stopped like twice to pee. And that was it. And that was my second to last workout of 75 hard. And then like the next day I turned in my photos for the transformation challenge. And like Andy saw me and she was, dude, what'd you do? And I was like, oh, now you recognize me.
Like, yeah.
Now you see me. Okay.
That's
all
it.
Right. And it was just great because it wasn't just because I wanted to beat Andy or gain his approval, or if I am going to expect more of myself, I have to push myself to do more. And I think my fondest memory of running that run is that like when I made the post, no one had anything ugly to say. Like no one was like, Trumper, oh, fucking American troops deserved it. It was just like, wow, people actually felt what I was doing. And it's because my physical standards showed it. My communal standards showed it. Everything around me was just like a higher standard. And those were the things that I really cared about, man. I had the example, I had the community, and I had the standard. And those three things, I think if you want to go to first form, you can get that. And if you don't want to go to first form, I think if you introduce those things to your workplace, your business, everyone will be better for the experience.
Oh yeah. If you can introduce those things, you're going to crush, right? Yeah. And holding a standard is, well, that's what I wanted to talk about on my podcast when I originally, wanted to do it. It's going to be called The Standard. I feel like it's something America needs. And there's so many fat, lethargic, just nasty people out there that, look, man, if you got a health issue, I get it. But anyone else, like we went over to my old lady's family's house. The nephews run up to me. They're like, why doesn't my dad look like you?
Oh,
damn. Right.
Yeah.
So, holding the standard, right? How I look is an active influence on them, right?
Yeah.
It's an active influence on everybody else surrounding me, right? And not only that, but even how we do our work. Mm-hmm. Do you talk to people?
How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Exactly. And I feel like there's such a problem with people holding themselves accountable and holding themselves to a standard that it really just needs to be addressed.
Yeah. I think if someone wants to raise their standard, they have to look around at the standard of everything that they have. Mm-hmm. They have to have that internal conversation of saying like, am I good right here? Like, you and I had a conversation earlier about what I want to do pertaining to my living situation.
Right.
And on the one end, my ego says, no, just stick it out, make everything work. But my other end says, well, if you take this one opportunity to get better and you take this opportunity to change a few things, you might have to ask for help from a friend.
Right.
I think what it does is it opens the door for a lot of growth and positive forward momentum. And most people, I always say this, most people would rather be right than win. Most people would rather sit there and obey their ego and do the thing that causes them to lose progress or causes them to move backward because it's that battle with themselves. I have to
Yeah.
prove myself right. Like, no, I know what's right and wrong for me. But like when faced with a good opportunity, it's like, well, if you just kind of abandon that kind of selfish image of yourself
Right.
that you're only pursuing for your own insecurity, then all this good stuff is on the other side of it. And kind of like what you said about all American needs, if 80% of Americans were all said, I'm committed to winning no matter what, and we agreed on what the terms of winning were, the whole country would look better. But there are too many people who would rather be right and gloat about it on the internet. And I'm not such a person.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everyone is afraid of the perception of a stranger.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. So, you get done with First Phorm, you launch your company, you're having a good time. Tell me, did you have a plan? Or did you just quit? Or like, what's the deal here, bud? Come on, tell the people here.
I really
They're
didn't.
dying to know.
I remember I didn't have the best plan. And on my exit interview, I sat with Sal. He goes, all right, so like if anyone asks me your rates, like what do I tell them? I was like, fuck, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
$50 a reel.
Shoo, I'll take it. Come on.
And you did. It was really like I had two clients. One of them was someone who used to work at First Phorm who stepped away and did his own business, which I still am a huge supporter and patron and part of his mission too. And then one of them was Zach Vegas, who you've been on his podcast,
right.
And I produced that podcast. And I mean, I gave up making like, I don't know, like maybe $6 or $7 grand a month, plus benefits, plus the best gym in the Midwest, bar none, plus traveling opportunities, plus networking opportunities. I gave all that up, proximity to my role models.
Oh, yeah.
In order to have the freedom to run my own business. And I basically was making like $2,500 a month, which is dog shit.
Oh, yeah.
And my goal at the time was really just like, hey, do your best this first year, cut expenses, increase revenues, move the girlfriend out here. Cause at the time I was in a long distance relationship with someone who I met through First Phorm, and we've since split. And, I doubt you'll ever hear this, but if you do, I hope you're doing well. There's no hard feelings there, but I kind of had to learn real quick that the safety net isn't there. Like when I sold drugs when I was in college, you understood something really quick. It's like, if you're not going to maintain a job while you do this, like all your bills are on you. The way you eat is on you.
Oh, yeah.
And to my credit, like I made a lot of money. Like I made really good money when I was hustling because like,
hell yeah,
it wasn't taxable. I didn't have to work any hours. I said I was at school. I could leave school to go sell drugs. It was just like, it was very simple. And it was very, I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was simple. And the best things in life, I believe, are really simple. And so I kind of had to start looking at this the same way, which was like prospecting for work, gaining revenue. How do I operate the system? And it was kind of cool because like, as I was learning, I was able to learn in my old stomping grounds because I went back and I helped out with a few teams at First Phorm for a little bit, which personally, I was not ready, not for the level of what they do.
Right.
I'd been running a camera for like 6 to 8 months.
Well, how so?
Skill, technique, equipment, direction, like all the attention to detail, where my sense of priorities were far away from where they needed it to be. And I can admit that now because like, I mean, I said it on the podcast last week, which was we took a lot of what Andy said for granted. And like, when I think about, it was funny because I sat with him like 2 months after I left and like a month before I was asked to spend some time there again. And he was like, so how's business? How's things? I was like, bro, I'm stressing, like I'm bringing in like $4 grand a month right now.
Yep.
I thought I was failing because like, that's only like half, maybe a little bit more than half of what I was doing as a W-2 employee for First Phorm. He goes, you're bringing in $4 grand a month right now?
Fucking killing it.
I was like, yeah. He goes, bro, it took me 7 years to say that.
Yep.
I was like, fuck. And so I had the audacity to do things my way. I got some people to take some chances on me early. You took some chances on me and we made some cool fitness content and some stuff that unfortunately never saw the light of day, but that's okay. It was just being willing to just get better on the go. And so like when I got asked to go back to First Phorm, I had to upgrade my equipment really quick, which I did. I had to learn about business credit really quick, which I did, and it helped me a lot. I started learning how to play the game. But even then, like my attention was just elsewhere. Like
Right.
I didn't want to be locked into the same building that I had just gotten out of, no matter how much I loved all the people there, the mission, the gym, all that shit. Like that's all good shit.
Yep.
But for me to really be like, all right, well, it's my life. What am I doing with it? And so like between the political content, I think there's another side of me that's very much far and away from what that represents. And that's the kind of content where it's like travel, festivals, live music events, live in it, commemorating. That's a big driving force behind the projects I take on.
It kind of sounds like you obviously bet on yourself. You know, you had to make it's, I think, one of the hardest things for people to do, especially with the anxiety that they have at their own jobs. It's hard enough to trust themselves, right? You know, whether it be backlash from friends, family, and then you got your boss screaming down at you because everyone fucks shit up at their job, right? Yeah. So they're getting yelled at some point or another. But so you got to be a ballsy motherfucker to bet on yourself. And right. So, and that's where I feel like it comes into play where, you know, if you have that core group around you, right? If you have a core group around you, you can make magic happen because that core group around you is all you need to succeed. Mm-hmm. Because you can tell really quick once you launch out on your own, who's got your back and who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously something you figured out pretty quick.
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, while I agree with you, you need that core group of people around you. I think it's enough to get started because like, as I've grown and as my business has grown, like, I mean, I was just out in Virginia Beach this last week and those are some of my very, very good friends, but are they the people who I see or talk to every day? No. I went out to help someone in Vegas the month before that. That's someone who I had even met in person before. No. But I knew him from Phorm. And I was helping with the beard oil company, and that was out in Idaho. That was different too. And so on and so forth. Like my people down in Florida, they're different. My guys up in New York, they're different. Like my hope is that core group of people is like the first seed that gets planted, and the tree that comes from that blooms from that, and the fruit that bears. To me, hopefully that's the word of mouth that everyone spreads about me. And to be completely honest, part of doing the politics thing was like when you talk about topics that are divisive, people talk about you.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Press is press, man. Good, bad, or ugly. So we know your exit. So we know how you kind of flowed into your business. Let's kind of backtrack. Let's backtrack all the way to Springfield. Tell me about that.
Pizza, Hennessy, and cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big three.
Yep. Oh, anything is possible.
Yeah, it says so on my leg.
Yeah, go ahead. Show the people. Show the people.
Sure. There it is.
Oh, it's hilarious. Gotta love that shit.
Yeah.
Another part of this podcast is, you know, I feel like everyone thinks that you have to be set up in a certain direction, right? To achieve this kind of work, to become an entrepreneur, to do your own damn thing. Like, what's your story? Like, what's the beginning?
Like I said earlier, man, my ability to communicate with people is probably my greatest skill or my greatest trait.
Right.
Because, you know, like I was born in the city, so I understood that like life was not always pretty or clean or, you know, clean cut.
Right.
And as I got older, I mean, from when we were younger, most people wouldn't have looked at me and said like, he looks like the kind of guy who's going to tell a crazy story about all the cool shit he did.
Absolutely fucking not.
No, because I was a scared little kid who would never disobey his parents and who would never take any chances. And when I started smoking weed, like the first time I really smoked weed, like and actually got anything out of it was like the week of our prom.
Right.
And I was with homie and it kind of like opened my eyes, be like, oh wow, maybe cool things do happen when you take chances. Cause I got the best night's sleep ever.
Ever.
Yep. And I had never felt more alive than in that moment. And it's so sad because it's just weed. But as that happened, like I kind of started to shed the image of myself of being someone who didn't take chances and who didn't really like himself and who had no confidence for being a guy who actually like just kind of outwardly portrayed his insecurities.
Right.
And so I started watching all the hood movies. Me and certain people we graduated with, we started spending more time in the city, and we started meeting folks who were really hanging out and really doing things and really touching money.
Right.
And I mean, it's just like you fall in love with that. And some of those more hood folks, they take you in and they're like, "Hey, you want some hen?" I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, you start kind of like finding pride in the fact that you come from the most dangerous city in the United States. You find pride that like that's what St. Louis is, and you start learning that like people will take advantage of you because like we got taken advantage of a bunch of times, and
Hell yeah.
you start playing a character of yourself. And
Yep.
so for me, I wanted to kind of like get over the pain of being a kid who kind of took it easy growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Saw myself as a suburban spoiled kid, and again, I was kind of indoctrinated to believe that was a bad thing. But you know, when I went from being who I was before to like really being Murph, because you know it's two different people really. I had kind of let go control of my better judgment, and I did it in order to tell stories. And the thing about taking risks is sometimes you risk things and sometimes they pay off and sometimes they don't. And the payoff for me was that I got another chance because like I'm a convicted felon for drug possession. I got caught with drugs probably 3 or 4 times
Right.
throughout my college years, and varying degrees. Like the first time was a little bit of weed. Second time was a decent amount of weed. Third time was a lot of weed. And fourth time was like drugs. Like homie was getting pulled over with stuff. And I mean, I remember in 2016 was like the greatest year of my college years because like, as far as like having fun, like I traveled all over. I was spring breaking. I was making great money. Like it was the best money I ever made. Still to this day, it was the best money I ever made.
Oh yeah. Hands down.
And again, the pizza, cocaine, and Hennessy thing, like that was my diet for that summer. I was living with some of my best friends in the world to this day. And we would do these long drives to other states, pick up work, bring it back, make a lot of money for doing that.
Yep.
Invest it in other things. And like, that's how you kept the money moving, was like, oh, here's this little thing that I always have volumes of cash coming in, and here's an opportunity to throw it at something. I wash it up and I cut it and I fucking go take this stuff that I got in St. Louis and I sell it to all these little kids in Springfield, and you made a fuck ton of money. You made a fuck ton of money. But when you get caught and then you don't have the money and you don't have the resources, you don't have the people to rely on, and your parents know the deal now, and this is going to go on your record forever. It's like, all right, well, I got to stop letting this personality control me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I've got to control it. And I mean, I did drug recovery. I ran 2 sentences of probation back to back. I was still, partying and hanging out pretty much the whole time I was on probation too.
Right.
I for lack of a better word, just stopped selling drugs for the most part.
Still wanted to have a good time.
I still knew how to have a good time and not get caught.
Exactly.
And there were points where I stopped smoking weed entirely. And, eventually I came back because I was just like, well, it's even a point where I find myself in my business now, which is there are ceilings on opportunities. And if you want to live the rest of your life in your college town, and that's the ceiling you want to hit your head on, by all means, have fun fitting into that room. But I realized about the time that I had called you, it was 2019. I had lived in Springfield 6 years, and I was like, is there more to life than this? Just this little Bible Belt place. Like, you realize, like, when you go to the same bars and places you've been going for half a decade and you don't recognize anyone in there anymore besides the people working there, it's like, okay, I've hit my ceiling.
Everyone else moved on.
For the most part.
You know what I mean?
For the most part, yeah. And so I was just like, well, stay. I can go.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to be a Springfield lifer?
Fuck, I don't want to be a St. Louis lifer.
Fuck no.
Dude, I don't want to be here right now.
I wouldn't mind being a St. Louis lifer.
I do.
But
I do.
That doesn't mean I stay in the same place. I'd like to have, different spots across the country. Make this home base. No matter how people see it. You know what I mean? This will be home base, but big dreams, big ambitions,
There's a lot of good things about St. Louis.
Have a place in Florida. I want to have a bunch of Airbnbs at one point. Have a Airbnb in Tennessee,
Arizona,
so,
Nevada.
Yeah, like, dude, just have Airbnbs, like fun places. That way, if you ever hit me up, you're like, hey, dude, I got this guy coming in and I want to show him a good time. Be like, go crash there. Go do that. Go hang out. You know what I mean? Or if me and Taylor want to go somewhere, let's book off to Tennessee or do this, do that. So, but it sounds like you kind of morphed out of that character and you took, for all the bad qualities, there had to be some good qualities that brought you into who you are now, right?
Yeah.
And when you fed into First Phorm, you took more good qualities, right? And then you just launched Paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
So, overall, you're obviously killing it, right? I mean, maybe not to your standard, but your story as a whole, it's telling for what people can actually achieve. You know what I mean?
I think that I'm in a good place considering where the story, most people figure out like the middle of the plot of it. A lot of people from back in the day did end up doing time or them are dead. And I think that when you look at what I've been able to do, I found my voice and I learned how to use it. I piss a lot of people off on the internet, which, I mean, it's not for the sake of pissing people off. It's just for the sake of saying you stand for something. And I'm also willing to admit when I'm wrong. I've created great relationships. I've fostered new friendships, and I've kept some old friendships going, like the one you and I have, for a long time, longer than a lot of people would expect. And I've networked with crazy individuals, and I'm involved in a few different businesses, and I own my own property and about to start getting into making money off of that property. And, for the fact of saying, for being a kid who didn't know what he was good at, and I just kind of made a bet on myself, done some pretty cool shit, taken some pretty cool pictures, made some pretty cool videos. I've done things that if you'd have told the version of me that was in Springfield in 2019, 2018, who really was deep into Andy's content, like not only will you almost hit him with your car someday, but you'll actually develop a really strong and prospering relationship with him and his whole family that will be remarkable.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I don't think I'm killing it yet, but I think it's a daily decision to do the best you can. And I don't always win that, but I'm here doing it. I'm here to tell the story, and I'm here to help you tell other people's stories too.
Amen. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So with that being said, last thing, not to address me, but to everybody else out there, whether it's another entrepreneur or it's somebody who picked something up from your story or hasn't started a business and wants to, or what is that critical piece of advice, or not even necessarily critical, just one thing that you don't hear, one thing that you think impacted you the most, right, in your life?
That I didn't hear?
Yeah. Well, when you hear things, you hear all these people on Instagram and Facebook and everything talk about the same shit over and over and over. Like, what do you think is that one piece that, whatever comes out of your mouth, people be like, well, never heard that before, but that's the truth.
I think the biggest piece of advice that people could take away from my lesson, and I don't necessarily think that it gets said this way, is like you've got to operate with some audacity.
Yeah.
Most people's biggest fear is like objectively offending people and being forced to back up their position.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are going to go into business for yourself, you're going to build a brand, or if you're going to be useful to somebody, or if you're going to challenge the way that things are, like our mentor does every single day. He challenges the way business is done. He's challenged the way that Americans live their lives. He challenges the convention of being a sedentary asshole that plays victim about everything. And fuck if he's not great at it. He pisses a lot of people off.
You got to hurt feelings.
You've got to be willing to hurt some feelings. And the truth is that the people's feelings you hurt, I mean, I live by a very simple standard whenever it comes to soliciting advice or considering the opinions of others. There are two classes of people that I will typically listen to, or at least take note of. Number one, do I want to be like you? If I don't want to be like you, then your opinion really doesn't mean much to me immediately. Like, I would like to be more like Andy. When I have kids, even before I have kids, I want to be a lot more like Sal.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be more like Cody. Like, those are all great guys. Will, even
1,000%. 100%.
Jaycon, all those guys. But like, there's something that they do or something that they embody that to me says that's a worthwhile trait to take note of and why you should probably listen to them. So the other group of people is, do you help me pay my bills? If you're not helping me eat and I don't want to be like you, you're an opinion. And that's
exactly. Without a doubt.
You're an opinion and everyone has one, just like an asshole. And most assholes are dirty and hairy and nothing but bullshit comes out of them. It just is. It's just truth.
It is what it is. No, 1,000%.
And so that's the thing. You got to have some audacity to bet on yourself. You have to see some audacity to be willing to fail. The audacity to be willing to win and not relish in it for too long, and just understand that one win will not get you another win. And that, I mean, honestly, you have to have the audacity to understand when you need to change directions, even if everybody else is telling you to do something else. You know, to circle back for the last time to the political content, it's time for me to change directions, because what I'm doing with my social media right now is actually a whole lot of nothing.
Right.
I know what I'm good at. I know what people want. And I know people are willing to pay attention. I know that there's going to be a win-win.
Fuck yeah, dude. Keep it fresh, right? Ever evolving.
Something like that.
All right, guys. So, Murph, let the people know where to find you.
So my main Instagram for my personal account is @thedaily_Murph on Instagram. That's where I usually kind of just like correspond all the other little projects I have going on. My YouTube channel is Murphy Wells. My X account is @thedailymurph_. My TikTok, which has nothing on it yet, has the exact same handle. And also my podcast, which works in correlation with my YouTube channel, is known as The Daily Murph Show. That is getting ready to relaunch, where it's just going to be pretty much a daily series of me updating you on the news, the political cycle, any talking points that I feel that I can cover and offer a fresh and unique perspective to that otherwise challenges the mainstream narrative. Those are all the things I'm doing. You can also find me producing the Zach and Pat Show, as well as the Becky Weiss YouTube channel, and as well as this as well. So those are some of the things that I do.
Boom. Well, Murph, it's been a pleasure as always.
Been real, been neat, been real neat.
Thanks for the talk. And guys, hopefully this wasn't a shit experience for you. You can find me, Matt T. Vote, on the Instagram. If you guys like this, if you loved it, because I know you fucking will, let me know. Let Murph know. Help your boys out. Spread the word. Spread the message. Subscribe. Send a like. Do a little bit of something for us, right? Because we're trying to do a little bit of something for you. So, with that being said, until next time, adios.